Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star 2, Land of Origin based on novel. So let's start. Don't let Qingyang and the others come out for now, Luo Feng instructed. I will get you to Huyang City as soon as possible. Huyang City had his own powerful avatar, sufficient to handle many dangers. This weaker avatar had, somewhat luckily, killed that grey mist entity. On one hand, it was because he possessed the Lai Yuan technique, but on the other, it was because the grey mist's spiritual will was too weak. Even among those at the first realm of Godly King, such weak spiritual will was rare. Even those at the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm, who reached the level of a Godly King, had quite a few. It's rare to see such weak spiritual will in the realm of the first realm of Godly King, Luo Feng thought to himself. Master, this assassination was targeted at me and Qingyang, Morosa voiced his doubt. Logically, Qingyang and I shouldn't attract such a powerful enemy. It was my fault. Luo Feng said, not long ago, I destroyed a great opportunity belonging to the Godly King of Wuxiang from the Shi Kingdom. Being able to summon members from the Shadow Sky realm to assassinate. Luo Feng quickly deduced the instigator. Having been so low profile since arriving in the land of origin, he had few enemies already, only someone who could afford to employ the Shadow Sky realm, just to kill a servant and a disciple. The Godly King of Wuxiang was the most likely possibility. Destroyed his great opportunity. How significant was this opportunity? Morosa inquired. Probably all the resources he had accumulated over his entire cultivation journey, Luo Feng guessed. A guest elder Godly King needed 50 million merit points to exchange for a position. Although the Godly King of Wuxiang was at the limit of the first realm of Godly King, acquiring this opportunity was indeed not easy. Indeed, the Godly King of Wuxiang had secured this opportunity at the cost of his brotherly relationship with the Emperor of Tianquan, and had essentially sold himself to the Two Realms Palace. All the resources accumulated since beginning his cultivation. This Godly King of Wuxiang must be furious, Morosa said, Master, you've indeed made a mortal enemy. Luo Feng just smiled and said no more. The flying boat, under Luo Feng's control, traversed the void with incredible speed. Luo Feng also examined the corpse of the Godly King he had just stored away. This Godly King's treasures. Luo Feng discovered some storage treasures within the corpse and also found a concealed Godly King weapon, which the opponent evidently had had no time to use. Some ordinary treasures and a golden cone from the first realm of Godly King. Luo Feng examined the golden cone and thought, adding up all the treasures, they are barely worth 100 billion cosmic sand. This Godly King, so poor. Luo Feng wondered. The Desert Wind City Lord, who had cultivated the primordial bloodline and invested so much in his own body, could still produce 80 billion cosmic sand. This clearly deeply accumulated Godly King only carried so few treasures. Too poor. Most transcendents of the primal chaos realm are wealthier than him. Luo Feng began to study the corpse further. This corpse. Upon examination, Luo Feng noticed the extraordinariness of the corpse. The grey mist had coalesced into a liquid state, slowly flowing while spreading more grey fog on its surface. It appeared as mist, yet it was immensely tough. Hiss, hiss. Luo Feng tried to damage it, but as the grey mist was destroyed, it naturally regenerated. Even in death, this corpse remains so extraordinary. Luo Feng thought back to when he had used the blade formation to subdue it, finding the opponent's mist body hard to handle. The blade formation was completely exhausted, yet the mist body's damage was negligible. He must have invested all his treasures in his body, Luo Feng guessed. This turns out to be a bargain for Morosa, Luo Feng chuckled inwardly. The more extraordinary the corpse, the greater the benefits Morosa would naturally gain after absorbing it. Moments later, The flying boat had arrived above Huyang City. Master, that corpse. Morosa looked at Luo Feng. Wait till we get back to Xiangjia City, then go to the Star Tower to collect it. Luo Feng glanced at him. Even if he absorbed it, it had to be done inside the Star Tower. Having said that, Luo Feng had already disappeared. Morosa felt somewhat eager, thinking about returning quickly, but there was no way around it. He had to accompany his good disciple, Qingyang. Whoosh! Morosa waved his hand, and the couple's Moyu Qingyang along with a group of followers were released back into the flying boat. We are fine. All of Moyu Qingyang's couples were very surprised. When they had been taken in, Great Saint Luo his blade formation had already been defeated. That enormous grey mist entity was about to kill them. Now, however, they had already arrived over a city. Huyang City has arrived, Morosa said. Qingyang, hurry down and see your father. Finish up the affairs quickly and head back to Xiangjia City. Yes, Second Master, Moyu Qingyang couldn't help but ask, Second Master, how did we manage to survive here? Don't ask so much. Morosa glanced at him, and had already taken the lead to fly out of the flying boat towards the city owner's mansion below. Moyu Qingyang and Zhong Yunj exchanged puzzled glances, taking their group of servants to fly down together. A vast and hidden world, also known as the Shadow Sky Realm. Completely dead. All avatars wiped out. A figure of thunder was informed and, shocked, immediately flew out of an ancient hall. Whoosh! He transformed into a thunderbolt, instantly crossing a great distance, arriving directly in front of a quiet pavilion within the Shadow Sky Realm. Master, the figure of thunder, terrifying in presence, stood outside the pavilion yet remained extremely respectful. The envoy has completely perished, and all his avatars have been annihilated. How did he die? A figure within the pavilion sat there. This figure sitting there naturally influenced the entire Shadow Sky Realm, and even his influence permeated beyond the Shadow Sky Realm, affecting many areas of the land of origin. We received a mission from the Wuxiang, godly king of Shi Kingdom, to kill Great Saint Luo his servant Luo Sa, and the disciple Moyu Qingyang, said the thunder figure respectfully. This mission was assigned to the envoy. The envoy sent avatars to assassinate. After the failure of the avatars, the envoy's true body descended himself. But after descending, he never returned, and all his avatars disappeared, as did all their causality. He is utterly and thoroughly dead, that figure inside the pavilion stated. Master, although the envoy's strength was only at the first realm of godly king with extreme standards, he had a strong self-preservation capability. How could he suddenly die? The thunder figure inquired. He had avatars in the Shadow Sky Realm, the figure inside the pavilion stated, and there was no causality attack that reached the Shadow Sky Realm. So it must have been some type of soul attack, possibly an assault of spiritual will, perhaps the extermination of the soul, or possibly control through an illusion technique. All are possible. The thunder figure stated, the envoy's spiritual will, although weak, had also reached the threshold of the first realm of godly king. To kill him merely with spiritual will, it would have to be a will beyond the ultimate realm of God King. Across the entire land of origin, not many can achieve such a step. As for the soul path, maneuvers at the godly king level are also very rare. Two possibilities. Either he encountered a terrifying entity with an extremely strong spiritual will who instantly exterminated him, the figure inside the pavilion said with a smile. Or he encountered a practitioner with achievements on the soul path. It's a minor matter, you need not worry too much about it. Yes, said the thunder figure respectfully. Being one of the core members of the Shadow Sky Realm, he also understood that many of the envoys were just ordinary members of the Shadow Sky Realm. Although I have bestowed you with power, you must also temper your own will. Without sufficient spiritual will, you cannot perfectly master this power, the figure inside the pavilion stated. Yes, Master, the thunder figure bowed respectfully and then left. The sitting figure in the pavilion watched this unfold. Cultivating powerhouses through external forces fundamentally has great flaws, the figure inside the pavilion pondered. No matter how many I nurture, confronted with truly powerful entities, they are wiped out under the sweep of a will. Yet, the sector beast from Tianmu Kingdom nurtures life within its inner world quite perfectly. The individual from the East Extreme Domain, who enlightens life with the great Tao of life origin, their nurtured life forms are more perfect than mine. That individual from the East Extreme Domain has ultimately survived the great destruction of the source world. He truly is different, reflected the figure inside the pavilion. There still are some key aspects that I haven't comprehended, pondered the figure inside the pavilion. I can select someone from among the divine sons to try to cultivate a new envoy. To the master of the Shadow Sky realm, cultivating an envoy was merely a test subject in his cultivation of secret techniques. Moreover, these test subjects were absolutely loyal and tirelessly earned resources for him. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Shi Kingdom, Wuxiang City. Wuxiang Ancestor had been waiting for a response from the Shadow Sky realm. Wuxiang Godly King, the mission has failed, Shadow Sky realm finally responded. Failed, the Wuxiang Ancestor could hardly believe it. Just an ordinary primal chaos realm and an eternal true god, and the Shadow Sky realm can fail. Luo his avatar was protecting them, the Shadow Sky realm replied, if another assassination is needed, it will cost 500 billion cosmic sand, and we can strike again with a stronger member. No need. Wuxiang Ancestor immediately cut off the communication. 500 billion cosmic sand. Just to kill a servant and a disciple. Even if they succeeded, it would feel like a loss. With such a reputation as that of the Shadow Sky realm, so useless, Wuxiang Ancestor was both angry and furious, having already lost a major opportunity once. Now, having spent 600 billion cosmic sand to engage the Shadow Sky realm and still failing, his anger was naturally even greater. Buzz. Wuxiang Ancestor could hardly tolerate this frustration, but also understood that it would be foolish to take action himself. He could only contact his elder brother. Wuxiang, what's the matter? The Emperor of Tian Kuan responded. Big brother, Wuxiang Ancestor did not hide anything in front of his elder brother, immediately telling him about the events in infinite space, and asking the Shadow Sky realm to take action. The opportunity one obtained at a great cost has gone just like that. I really can't tolerate it, said Wuxiang Ancestor. You'll have to tolerate it even if you can't. The voice of the Emperor of Tian Kuan came through, cold and distant. Wuxiang Ancestor was taken aback. The Shadow Sky realm's actions have an extremely low chance of failure, which is why they are considered the top assassination force in the land of origin. The voice of the Emperor of Tian Kuan sounded. When they take action, they consider many factors. They surely accounted for the protection by Luo his avatars. Yet they still failed. Clearly there were unexpected circumstances. Unexpected circumstances. Wuxiang Ancestor wondered. I am very clear about the operations of the Shadow Sky realm. This unexpected situation is highly valued. They would be willing to disclose it to you only for a substantial price, said the Emperor of Tian Kuan. Wuxiang Ancestor knew well that his elder brother was a second realm godly king and an official member of the two realms palace, really mingling among the high tiers of conflicts in the land of origin, his understanding of various forces indeed much deeper than his own. This assassination, precisely what unexpected factors there are, is worth investigating, continued the Emperor of Tian Kuan. On the other hand, contending against Luo, he brings no good outcomes. He is the direct disciple of Emperor Chu. If the contest continues, not only will you fail to kill him, but it will also ruin my relations with the Flame-Wind ancient country. I have very good relations with several emperors of the Flame-Wind ancient country, which cannot afford your disruption, stated the Emperor of Tian Kuan. Understood, responded Wuxiang ancestor. One of the reasons his elder brother moved freely in the land of origin was his excellent relations with several emperors of the flame-wind ancient country. Of course, his elder brother's culinary skills reaching the godly king level was another reason that made those emperors admire him. Flame-wind ancient country and thunder ancient country are the two core forces of the land of origin. As long as we maintain good relations with flame-wind ancient country, others will think twice before dealing with us. So your matter with Luo he ends here. The Emperor of Tian Kuan stated. Yes, I understand. Wuxiang ancestor could only obediently comply. Once the communication was severed, Wuxiang ancestor was quite dissatisfied. My brother, disregarding his identity as a second realm godly king to please the flame-wind ancient country. Now he even refuses to offend a disciple of Emperor Chu. Although discontented in his heart, Wuxiang ancestor could only comply obediently. Because to seek great opportunities and major benefits, he ultimately had to rely on his elder brother. Huyang City. Moyu Qingyang and his wife had stayed in the city for a while, but they were about to leave. This is where I grew up, here with my father, my elder brother, said Moyu Qingyang with reluctance. Yun Ji, I even thought about settling down here with you. After all, Master has an avatar here, and I could often seek his advice. I know it's hard for you to leave, his wife Yunji said with a smile, but from a cultivation perspective, Huyang is just a city in Yu Kingdom, a relatively remote country on the land of origin. It doesn't compare to Xiangjie City in terms of resources. Xiangjie City, on the border of two ancient countries, is far more prosperous. For cultivation, resources are very important. Moreover, the deputy city lord of Huyang is a role your father shares with Mo Li Meng. Are you planning to compete with them for their position? Yun Ji asked. And your second master and the original divine monarch are also in Xiangjie City, both of whom have been very instructive to you. I understand, Moyu Qingyang nodded. I was merely sharing my thoughts with you. For their future children, Xiangjie City was by far the best choice for themselves and their spouse. Let's go, said Yun Ji. Moyu Qingyang followed her out of their residence. Inside the city owner's mansion, several members of the Moyu family, including Mo Li Meng and some friends, came to see off Moyu Qingyang and his wife, along with Morosa. Father, Moyu Qingyang looked at his father. Moyu, who was quite gratified and immediately transmitted his advice. Qingyang, Deputy City Lord Luo trusts me and has taken you as his disciple, which is a great honor. Always remember this immense favor and never become arrogant. If your arrogance displeases Deputy City Lord Luo, then this goodwill will disappear. I understand, nodded Moyu Qingyang, who clearly knew his master's temperament after being with him for so long. We cultivators rarely encounter such a great opportunity in life, and Deputy City Lord Luo is your greatest fortune. Remember this well, Moyu Hu said, reminding his son whose future seemed increasingly bright. Within such a short time, his son had become an eternal true god. In Xiangjie City, he was almost acting as the city's lord and had even married the daughter of the royal family, indicating a boundless future. Little brother, Moyu Lifeng looked at his brother, whose resources had always been good in Huyang City, but ultimately without the guidance of a strong cultivator like Morosa, and having followed the bloodline cultivation system from the start, he was still stuck at the true god of void space stage. When they were children, amongst the three brothers, he clearly had the most talent. But Moyu Qingyang had Morosa's guidance and Luo Feng's resources, which clearly made a difference. Of course, Moyu Lifeng was not bothered, he was merely happy. Because in this world, he had only this one brother left. I don't know when we'll meet again, Moyu Lifeng said to his only brother. Have more children with your sister-in-law. Among us three brothers, you are the only one without children. Definitely, Moyu Qingyang smiled and then looked towards a young man in the distance, beckoning, Feng Qiu, come here. Uncle, the young man approached, bearing some resemblance to Moyu Liuxing. Moyu Feng Qiu, the youngest son, was born after Moyu Liuxing died. His wife Mo Youshang was already pregnant when Moyu Liuxing died. As per the family's wishes, Moyu Feng Qiu also followed the law cultivation system initially, and was still just a true god. Morosa waited in the distance, feeling a bit of urgency, but he did not press the matter. A moment later. Finally, we can set off, Morosa sighed with relief when he saw Moyu Qingyang and his wife approaching. He had been longing to enjoy some delicacies. Second master, let's go, Moyu Qingyang approached. Morosa nodded and with a wave of his hand conjured a flying boat. Morosa, Moyu Qingyang, his wife, and their servants all entered the flying boat. Soon, the flying boat broke through the skies and disappeared. The Moyu family members watched from afar, as the distance between Huyang City and Xiangjie City was too vast. Under normal circumstances, they rarely met. My uncle is quite generous. The resources he gives when he returns are much more than what my granduncle and his generation received, Moyu Feng Qiu thought to himself. Although his mother was strict, as the only child of Moyu Liuxing, he was naturally favored within the Moyu family, and was undoubtedly a person of power within Huyang City. However, with Deputy City Lord Luo's temperament, the descendants of the Moyu and Moli families, both Deputy City Lord families, had to keep a low profile and be very careful. I'm most at ease when Moyu who handles matters. Luo Feng's avatar within the city owner's mansion also watched this scene. Moyu Lai Feng is also not bad, but the later descendants of the Moyu family are rather mediocre. When the Heart Shadow sect wreaked havoc, Moyu Liuxing died. Luo Feng had considered, if Moyu Liuxing's child, Moyu Feng Qiu, had a good disposition, he could be nurtured to an extent. But with Luo Feng's capability to observe the entire city with a thought, having watched over time, he had given up on nurturing him. Morosa, escorting Moyu Qingyang and his wife, traveled from Yu Kingdom's Huyang City to Flame Wind Ancient Country, first stopping in Chu capital before continuing to the border city, Xiangjie City. In Chu capital, inside Luo Feng's cave dwelling's quiet room in the Star Tower. Morosa, as a sector beast, had the ability to create avatars since he was weak, which was one of his innate talents. At this moment, his true body remained inside the Star Tower, focused on digesting the corpse of a godly king level. Master, master. Not long after digesting, Morosa immediately called upon his master. What's wrong? Luo Feng arrived at the space within the Star Tower that was exclusively for Morosa. That godly king corpse is very special, Morosa said gravely. Isn't it suitable for devouring and digesting? Asked Luo Feng. Morosa replied, this godly king corpse is greatly beneficial to me, but the essence of this corpse, it absolutely could not have been cultivated by someone at the first realm of godly king. Luo Feng's expression changed slightly. What do you mean? While I was digesting it, I could clearly perceive that this corpse contained the profound mysteries of both the origin Tao of matter and origin Tao of the infinite. The combination of these two laws cultivated such a physical body. As for the level of mystery, it far surpasses my current realm and definitely is not of the first realm of godly king. It might be of the second realm of godly king, or possibly even the ultimate realm of God King. Luo Feng was startled. The godly king I killed, although his body was tough and difficult to deal with, was judged to be only of a very powerful standard within the first realm of godly king. It is still far from the undefeatable level of the first realm, Luo Feng said. This physical body must have been refined by an extremely powerful existence, Morosa said. No wonder his spiritual will was so weak. His strongest physical body was all due to external help, Luo Feng understood. The godly king he had slain should have had a very shallow foundation, It was only with external help that he had such a powerful physical body and thus, that level of strength. A physical body also requires spiritual will to control, Marosa said. This physical body has great potential, but the deceased godly king, his spiritual will was relatively weak, only capable of unleashing part of the body's power. If his spiritual will had been stronger, his power would have probably surged dramatically. Luo Feng nodded. Master, cultivating your own physical body and helping other cultivators to refine theirs are completely different challenges, Marosa said gravely. I can only rely on the sector inherent within my body to naturally give birth to each life. Yet this hidden existence could achieve this step on his own realm. It's truly terrifying. Luo Feng nodded. We need to be cautious in dealing with this one, Marosa said. At least for now, we are far from being his match. From just one corpse, they could see the gap between them. I am only at the pinnacle of primal chaos realm, and you are merely at the first realm of godly king. Don't think about opponents, just focus on getting stronger slowly, Luo Feng said. Marosa nodded, a bit shocked by the power of this corpse. Asterisk. Time passed. Following the death of that godly king from the Shadow Sky realm, no news of any godly king's death had spread through the land of origin, which made Luo Feng and Marosa more certain that this was a servant refined by some terrifying existence. Afterward, Luo Feng encountered no more trouble. Clearly, the terrifying existence that had refined that physical body had no intention of targeting Luo Feng. Compared to the truly pinnacle existences of the land of origin, I am still too weak, Luo Feng focused on his cultivation. The emperor of Tien Kuan from the Sha kingdom, as a second realm of godly king, was considered an overlord. However, he was far from being a match for the pinnacle existences of land of origin. The leaders of the hidden forces in the land of origin were each incredibly mysterious and formidable. Two Realms Palace, Wan Fa Tower, Time-Space Lonely Boat, the entities these two ancient countries were wary of, all backed by alien powerhouses. Alien powerhouses only send avatars, and they can never be completely eradicated. In this encounter with the Shadow Sky realm, which the two ancient countries did not consider a threat, Luo Feng immediately understood the immeasurable depths hiding behind it when they dispatched Emperor-level combat power. I, a little guy, should keep accumulating slowly. After consuming the primordial crystal spirit fruit and clearing spirit liquid, Luo Feng primarily contemplated the 10 directions world form. Only when fatigued would he study the calamity beast diagram to deal with some spiritual beings in infinite space. In infinite space, he exchanged 4 special grade inheritances, of course, all just parts from the first realm of godly king. It broadened Luo Feng's horizons considerably and made him acutely aware of the importance of comprehension and spiritual will. Just like Luo Feng's transformation method, if his spiritual will were weaker, the number of triune forms he could control would drastically decrease, and his strength would comprehensively decline. Moreover, spiritual will also affects comprehension of the Great Tao, and control over the physical body, among many other aspects. I have a feeling that if I attempt to comprehend the 6 branches of life, it shouldn't take too long to achieve breakthroughs, Luo Feng thought during his cultivation, having this premonition. But it's still not enough. According to the creator of a world life form, one should not deliberately comprehend it. Just accumulate to the deepest level, and mastery will come naturally. Luo Feng continued studying the 10 directions world form. The 6 branches of life and 6 branches of destruction had both reached the pinnacle of primal chaos realm over centuries, but their accumulation clearly still had a gap. Regarding the 6 branches of destruction, Luo Feng did not feel that just by comprehending, he could make rapid breakthroughs. This video will end here.